Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Morning, everyone. Bon matin tout le monde. Thank you for joining us this sunny Friday for this important announcement. Merci de nous joindre à nous pour cette annonce importante. We will begin with a few words from the Honorable Marco Mendicino, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. On commencera maintenant avec quelques mots de l'Honorable Marco Mendicino, ministre de l'Immigration, des Réfugiés et de la Citoyenneté. Over to you, Minister.
Good morning. Bonjour à tous. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am joining you, along with my colleagues, Ministers Sejan and Garneau, remotely from the traditional territories of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. 20 years ago, Canada marked the beginning of its military operations in the war in Afghanistan. Between 2001 and 2014, more than 40,000 Canadian Armed Forces members served there. They served alongside American, British, and other NATO troops in an international coalition effort to eliminate terrorism, establish security, and ultimately to create the conditions that would make for a better future for the people of Afghanistan. 10 years ago, this very month, the Canadian Armed Forces Infantry Battle Group formally handed over control of the battle space in Kandahar province, officially ending Canada's combat mission in Afghanistan nearly a decade after the attacks of September 11, 2001. The mission undertaken by our armed forces was long, difficult, and perilous. Ultimately, the war in Afghanistan claimed the lives of 165 Canadians and forever impacted countless others. Yet these brave souls were not the only ones who sacrificed everything. Throughout the war and after, many brave Afghans themselves stepped up to provide support that was crucial to the mission. Dès les premiers jours de la mission, les hommes et les femmes en uniforme du Canada ont compté sur l'intelligence, le bon sens et la bravoure de tant de citoyens afghans. Ces personnes ont servi de traducteurs à nos soldats sur le champ de bataille et, dans bien des cas, leur ont sauvé la vie. Souvent au péril de leur vie, ils ont fait des sacrifices pour aider le Canada parce qu'ils croyaient en l'avenir de leur pays et au travail que nous avons accompli ensemble pour l'assurer. The Afghans who served Canada as translators for our military on the battlefield risked their own lives because they believed in building a better future for their country and the work we did together to secure it. But their work did not end when the Maple Leaf was lowered at Kandahar Air Base for the last time in 2011. In the decades since, many Afghans have continued to work for Canada at our embassy in Kabul. Afghans employed as locally engaged staff have been essential to maintaining our presence in Afghanistan, which have ensured that the people-to-people ties between our two countries remains strong. Make no mistake, whether on the battlefield or at the embassy, these brave Afghans helped Canada knowing full well that they were putting themselves in their own harm's way. But their service to Canada comes at a significant cost. The risk of retribution from the Taliban is grave. Afghans who have supported Canada are routinely and deliberately subject to threats of violence, torture, and death, as are their families. And these threats are only intensifying. Afghans themselves have paid an equally heavy price, both during and after the war, and yet they did it anyway. Not only does Canada owe them a debt of gratitude, we have a moral obligation to do right by them. Which brings us to why we are here today. The situation in Afghanistan is critical. The NATO withdrawal is approaching and violence is escalating. Over the past weeks, we've heard from retired generals, veterans, and Afghans themselves. And they've asked us to do right by those who did right by Canada. Today, we answer their call. Canada is here to support those who supported us. Aujourd'hui, nous répondons à leur appel. Le Canada est là pour soutenir ceux qui nous ont soutenus. I'm very pleased to announce a new program that will protect and resettle the Afghans who were integral to Canada's efforts in Afghanistan. My department is implementing expeditiously special immigration measures that will offer a path to protection in Canada for those at risk due to their work. Je suis fier d'annoncer un nouveau programme visant à protéger et à réinstaller les Afghans qui ont fait partie intégrante des efforts du Canada en Afghanistan. Mon ministère met en œuvre des mesures d'immigration spéciales qui offriront une voie vers la protection au Canada à ceux qui sont en danger en raison de leur travail. Global Affairs and National Defense are working quickly to identify and assist these peoples, and operational teams are currently on the ground in Afghanistan, and I want to thank my colleagues, Ministers Sajjan and Garneau, who have been instrumental in getting us to this point. Our focus is on those who have had a significant and enduring relationship with the Government of Canada in Afghanistan. Those eligible will include, but are not limited to, interpreters who worked with the Canadian Forces during the combat mission, locally engaged staff currently or previously employed at the Canadian Embassy, and their families. I would point out that these special measures are in addition to prior special immigration measures, which helped us to resettle roughly 800 Afghans, as well as other efforts which are already underway to aid targeted and persecuted minorities with a pathway to Canada, including Afghan Sikhs who are outside of Afghanistan. Applicants must also meet the usual admissibility requirements to protect their safety as well as the safety of all Canadians. We will not disclose the names of those individuals who are eligible under this program for resettlement. We will expedite the normal processing times in order to preserve their safety. We know that time is of the essence. We expect the first arrivals will be in Canada very shortly. Tant de citoyens afghans se sont mis en danger pour aider le Canada pendant et après notre mission de combat en Afghanistan. Maintenant, ils font face à des menaces encore plus grandes de la part des talibans et nous ne laisserons pas derrière. Those who worked for Canada and served Canada are in harm's way. We will not leave them behind. Lives hang in the balance here, which is why we are taking timely and decisive action. Canada will do right by those who did right by us. Thank you, merci, and now I will turn it back over to Alex.
Thank you, Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Passera maintenant la parole à l'Honorable Harjit Sajjan, Minister de la Défense nationale. I'll now pass the floor to the Honorable Harjit Sajjan, Minister of National Defense. Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you. Good morning. Bonjour à tous. Today I join you from the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. As Minister Mendicino has already said, between 2001 and 2014, as part of Canada's longest war, more than 40,000 Canadian Armed Forces members deployed to Afghanistan. Our members served with honor as they tried to bring peace and stability to the region. But our members did not work alone. Throughout Canada's mission, many brave Afghans brought invaluable skills to our combat, training, and civilian missions. Some were interpreters, bringing their knowledge of the language, but more importantly, the knowledge of the culture and the local dynamics to help us do our work. Others contributed to the Canadian Embassy, all in support of the coalition and NATO efforts and the government of Afghanistan. Their work was instrumental to the Canadian mission. But the security situation in Afghanistan has worsened in recent months. And I know that the Canadian Armed Forces members and veterans who served in Afghanistan, as well as many Canadians, are concerned by reports of the Taliban gaining strength in areas throughout the country. They are afraid for those they worked with, for the many Afghans who risked their lives to assist Canada during the mission, and who are rightfully now asking us to keep them safe from Taliban retribution. I've seen firsthand the courage that interpreters and others who worked with us brought to bear in support of their country and to help keep Canadians safe. And I'll be blunt, this is a personal issue for me and all those who served there. I have known many of these peoples and served alongside them. We will do everything in our power to keep them and their families safe. Today's announcement is a signal, a promise to those that we worked with in Afghanistan that they will not be left behind. Helping them, like they helped us, is the right thing to do. We owe it to those who served alongside our members in uniform to make sure that they and their families are safe. It is why I and the Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of National Defence have been working very closely with Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada on a plan for how we can bring these Afghans and their families to Canada and to safety. And it is why we will resettle Afghans who are at serious risk, including interpreters who supported the Canadian Armed Forces, locally engaged personnel who worked at the embassy in Kabul, and their families. National Defence and Global Affairs are providing Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada with lists of those eligible for resettlement to Canada. We are working with Canadians who have knowledge of Afghan individuals who served, former Canadian Armed Forces members and civilians alike, are aiding in this effort. We will also provide any other assistance necessary, from logistics to planning to military assets, to bring them here to Canada. We will continue working until Afghans who are integral to our work and their families, that they are brought safely to Canada. Canada remains deeply committed to Afghanistan and its people. The Canadian Armed Forces, the Department of National Defence, and I will not shy away from our responsibility to help the courageous Afghan nationals who have risked so much in service to us and our allies. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Je passerai maintenant la parole à l'honorable Marc Garneau, Ministre des Affaires étrangères. I'll now pass the floor over to the Honorable Marc Garneau, Minister of Foreign Affairs, who joins us from Montreal.
Thank you for all being here. Over the past 20 years, we have relied on locally hired staff and local collaborators to carry out our diplomatic mission in Afghanistan. As the level of violence increases, we have a responsibility to protect targeted people for helping us to advance human rights, education, health, and security in their country. Ensuring the safety and security of all our personnel, whether Canadian or Afghan, past or present, and the people who are helping us on the ground, is our top priority. The pace of the Taliban's advances over the course of the past months is troubling. We call for a permanent ceasefire to end the interminable suffering of the Afghan people, as well as to facilitate the provision of humanitarian assistance to those in need. Meanwhile, however, we are taking all necessary measures to ensure the protection of our current employees and to enable our mission to continue its important work in support of the Afghan people. We continue to work with our international partners on contingency planning to ensure the security of our embassy and to fulfill our responsibilities to all staff. Nous prenons très au sérieux notre responsabilité envers nos employés, canadiens et afghans, nos collaborateurs sur le terrain et leurs familles. Pour des raisons de sécurité, nous ne sommes pas en mesure de partager les détails opérationnels spécifiques, mais je peux vous assurer que nous agirons rapidement. Nous continuons à suivre de très près l'évolution de la situation politique et sécuritaire. La recrudescence de violence en Afghanistan inquiète la communauté internationale. J'en ai discuté avec mes homologues au G7 et dans l'OTAN, ainsi qu'avec le ministre afghan des Affaires étrangères, M. Atmar. Nous sommes tous préoccupés par la menace que représentent les talibans pour les gains réalisés, notamment en ce qui concerne les droits des femmes et des filles. Les efforts du Canada en Afghanistan ont contribué à une réelle amélioration de la vie des personnes les plus vulnérables en Afghanistan et nous restons déterminés à répondre aux besoins du peuple afghan. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Thank you, Minister. We will now begin the press conference portion of the event. We will alternate some folks in the room, as there are folks in the room now, and then some folks on the phone. Donc, on commencera avec les gens en chambre, et puis on passera après au téléphone. So we'll begin in the room. So, Annie, go ahead.
Hi, it's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. The U.S. announced that it's coordinating with its allies to evacuate 4,000 Afghans and their families who worked with NATO coalition forces. Are we depending on the U.S. to get our employees, I guess, or Afghans who worked with Canada out, or is this something that Canada is doing independently?
Well, I'll just begin by saying that those discussions are underway, but certainly from the standpoint of today, it was important that we announce the special immigration measures which will ensure that those Afghans who have a relationship with the Government of Canada, both as you heard from Minister Garneau at our embassy, as well as historically in translator and other critically important capacities now have a pathway to Canada. And with regards to the operational aspects of how they will come to Canada, I will pass the mic over to Harj.
No, thank you very much for that question. Obviously, for operational security reasons, we can't provide the details, but one thing I can assure you that we are involved with the planning, the logistics, and the security of how this will take place. For very good reasons, we are in discussions with our allies because the most important objective for us is how to do this safely for the people that we're bringing over. So we can't provide the details, but I can assure you that the planning and the work has been ongoing for some time.
And I'm just hoping that you can provide some additional information in terms of eligibility. I know the program that expired in 2011, you needed a minimum of 12 months of service between 2007 and 2011. There was some criticism that 12 months was too long a time for a lot of locally engaged staff. I'm wondering if you can provide details on the eligibility. How long is it? You say a significant contribution to Canada. What does that look like?
Well, I want to thank you, Annie, for the question. And certainly my approach to this program has to try to be first and foremost very collaborative with both DND as well as Global Affairs, because they are best situated to identify those Afghans who have a relationship with the Government of Canada, who have aided our soldiers on the battlefield, as well as our presence at the embassy and elsewhere. You've heard that with today's announcement, we're looking primarily at three groups: those who are currently engaged as staff in support of our embassy operations there. You've also heard that we're looking at translators, as well as others who have provided critical support to our operation and our presence in Canada, and their families. And certainly my view is that the parameters of this program will allow us to do right by those Afghans who did right by Canada.
Thanks, Annie. On passera maintenant au téléphone. We will now go to the phone for our next question. Operator.
Thank you. Merci. Our first question, première question, Anna Miller-Pepperny from Reuters. Your line is open. À vous la parole.
Do you know approximately how many people we're talking about who are eligible? And could you give some more specifics on time frame? When do you expect people to begin arriving in Canada? And at what point do you hope to have them all transported here?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And certainly we continue to identify those Afghans who will be eligible under the special immigration measures which have been announced today. I want to emphasize that we're going to continue to work very closely with both the DND as well as Global Affairs to identify those individuals who will be eligible. I would also highlight that the specific categories that I mentioned today are not exhaustive. I think it's important that we continue to do the hard work on the ground of identifying those individuals that have played a critically important role in supporting Canada's presence in Afghanistan. And with regards to timing, I think what you've heard from both Ministers Sage-Ann Garneau as well as myself is that we appreciate that there is a need to act quickly and decisively, but that we must also do so safely given the very dynamic and rapidly deteriorating situation in Afghanistan. And I'm happy to turn it over to either of my colleagues if they wish to say more on timing.
I can offer a comment. I think, as Minister Mendicino said, we're evaluating the situation. Obviously, we have staff at the embassy who continue to provide vital services, but at the same time, we're monitoring the situation on a day-to-day basis, and it is based on that we will make our decisions. And that is something that is very difficult to predict, but I can assure you that we're putting everything in place to react quickly.
Follow up, Anna?
Thank you. Just to clarify though, sorry, like, are we talking people beginning to arrive next week, in a month? Like, approximately what kind of time frame are we looking at right now?
I'll reiterate that, as Minister Sajan said, that for operational security reasons, that the precise timing of this operation is extremely sensitive, and for the safety and security of the Afghans as well as the Canadian teams who are already on the ground. I would just emphasize that the work has begun to assess the security situation, that we have to safeguard the precise details of how this operation will be carried out, as well as exactly when it will begin, and certainly happy to turn it over to Harj if you'd like to add to that.
No, unfortunately, there's nothing that we can add. This is about making sure that we do this safely. We're trying to bring the Afghans who helped us back here safely because their lives are at risk. So the last thing we want to do, any of us, is to jeopardize their safety. So this will be done with the utmost planning with our allies. I can assure you that the Canadian Armed Forces have been diligently working on the planning, and they've done this type of work quite a few times in the past. They know the area well. However, the security situation is deteriorating, and we need to work with our allies very, very closely. So the plan itself has to be guarded for the safety of the people that we're trying to bring to Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. On passera maintenant à la Chambre pour la prochaine question. We'll now go to the room for our next question. David, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. David Thurton, CBC News. I want to ask a question about Afghan interpreters and cultural workers who are in Canada right now. They are out of harm's way. They are safe. But some of them are worried about their families that are back home in Afghanistan. Are their families eligible to apply for assistance through this program?
Already been resettled to Canada because their families may be in danger of being targeted by the Taliban abroad, as well as those Afghans who will be eligible under the new special immigration measures, which we've announced today. I would certainly invite anyone who believes that they or their family may be eligible under this program to contact my office directly, and we will work very closely with them, as well as the Department of National Defence and Global Affairs Canada, to identify those who may be able to avail themselves of this program.
So if I'm just understanding you correctly, and then I'll ask my follow-up really quickly, Afghan interpreters and cultural workers who are in Canada, their families who are in Afghanistan may be eligible. You're not closing the door to that. And what about interpreters, cultural workers who've worked with non-governmental organizations or even media companies or corporations such as the CBC? Are they eligible for this program? Can they get any assistance?
Well, as a follow-up to my initial answer to your first question, I would say that, again, without prejudging or knowing or even wanting to comment on any specific case due to operational sensitivities, it may very well be that the relatives of those who are already here in Canada may have contributed in a critically important way to Canada's mission there. So I wouldn't want to make any assumptions about that. But in addition to the special immigration measures which we've announced today, of course, those who are here in Canada who have permanent status, whether as a refugee or as an economic immigrant, do have the ability to sponsor their family members. And as you have heard me say on many occasions, I'm very proud of the work that Canada has done to keep our immigration system open, despite the many challenges that have been posed by the pandemic. And the point that I would make is that there are multiple pathways, both pre-existing as well as the special immigration measures today, which Afghans may be able to take advantage of should they choose to do so. And with regards to Canadians who have expressed, I think, a real groundswell of support for Afghans who have been so instrumental in supporting Canada's effort in Afghanistan, I think this is a watershed moment. We should embrace that support, and we are prepared to work and partner with Canadians who wish to help support those Afghans who will be permitted to resettle here. The program and the policy that we've announced today is very important. The support that DND and GAC will offer to operationalize it, to make it a reality, will also be essential. But once those Afghans arrive here, what they need is a community and support. And what Canadians have shown time and time again is that they are prepared to welcome those newcomers, those immigrants, and indeed those who have been deliberately targeted and persecuted by those who would seek to destabilize the world because they know that immigrants give back. And I suspect that we will see the same here as well.
Thank you, David. On passera maintenant au téléphone pour notre prochaine question. We will now go to the phone for our next question. Operator, operatrice.
Thank you. Merci. Our next question, la prochaine question. Louis Blouin, Radio-Canada. Your line is open. À vous la parole.
Bonjour, M. Mendicino. J'aimerais une clarification sur le nombre de personnes qui pourraient être accueillies. Peut-être une estimation. Est-ce qu'on parle de dizaines de personnes? Est-ce qu'on parle de centaines de personnes qui pourraient se prévaloir de ce système-là? Et est-ce que des gens qui ont fui dans d'autres pays, moi j'ai parlé la semaine dernière à un interprète qui a fui au Pakistan, par exemple, est-ce que lui aussi pourrait être admissible à ce programme-là?
Merci pour la question. Dans la première instance, c'est trop tôt pour répondre exactement avec des chiffres ou des nombres des individus et les Afghans qui deviennent peut-être éligibles sous cet nouveau programme. Mais on va continuer d'identifier les Afghans qui vont être éligibles avec mes collègues, les ministres Sejan et Garneau. Et la dernière partie de votre question c'est touché sur la géographie. Le focus de ce programme est sur les Afghans qui avaient une relation spéciale avec le gouvernement du Canada pendant la mission, mais même avec la présence aujourd'hui et leurs familles. Et l'implémentation de ce programme vont continuer en étroite collaboration avec le DND et le GAC.
Suivi, Louis?
Ma deuxième question serait pour le ministre Garneau. Vous avez parlé tout à l'heure, M. Garneau, de la recrudescence de la menace que représentent les talibans. J'aimerais vous entendre là-dessus. Y a-t-il pas un constat d'échec assez brutal pour les pays occidentaux après tous les efforts qui ont été faits sur le terrain en Afghanistan, les soldats canadiens qui ont perdu leur vie là-bas, et là, on est en train de voir que on n'a pas réussi à installer un État stable là-bas, à stabiliser la situation sécuritaire. Y a-t-il pas un constat d'échec pour des pays comme le Canada qui ont essayé pendant des années là-bas, et là, aujourd'hui, on se rend compte que c'est en train de dégringoler, finalement?
Merci pour la question et certainement, je ne pense pas que on peut être autre que fier de ce que le Canada a fait dans les 20 dernières années. Avec beaucoup de sacrifices, oui, c'est vrai, mais avec de très bonnes intentions. Et ces intentions étaient non seulement de se débarrasser, bien sûr, de Al-Qaïda, ce qui était la motivation originale, mais aussi d'amener une meilleure vie au peuple afghan, et particulièrement pour les femmes et les filles. Et je crois que le Canada peut se dire qu'il a fait une bonne contribution à ce pays, et on aimerait continuer de maintenir les services et les bonnes choses que nous avons apportées à ce pays. Certainement, la situation à ce moment est extrêmement difficile. C'est pas quelque chose qui est sous notre contrôle, mais moi, je vous dirais que le Canada peut être fier de ce qu'il a fait dans les 20 dernières années et je suis personnellement, en tant qu'ancien militaire, très fier de nos militaires. Beaucoup d'entre eux, comme vous le savez, ont sacrifié leur vie, mais pour une très, très bonne cause. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. On passera maintenant à la Chambre pour une prochaine question. On va go to the room for our next question. Go ahead.
Bonjour, Boris Proulx du Devoir. J'aimerais savoir pour le ministre de l'Immigration, ces personnes vont être incluses dans quelle catégorie d'immigration? Est-ce qu'on parle de personnes protégées et réfugiées ou motifs d'ordre humanitaire ou carrément autre chose?
Spéciaux qui étaient, le politique spéciaux qui était annoncé aujourd'hui vont accueillir les Afghans dans la catégorie des réfugiés et c'est un programme spécial qui besoin de la collaboration de mes collègues, le ministre Sejan et Garneau, pour identifier les Afghans qui est éligible dans ce programme. Cet travail continué sur le terrain et voilà.
Merci. En suivi, j'aimerais demander au ministre Garneau, en suivi à la question qui a été posée précédemment, si la cause de l'Afghanistan était bonne en 2001 pour aller faire une intervention militaire, pourquoi elle n'est plus bonne en 2021, alors qu'il est entendu que votre gouvernement, je crois, à moins que vous me dites le contraire, là, n'a pas l'intention de s'y rendre avec les forces armées canadiennes en ce moment, même si la situation s'aggrave?
Comme vous le savez, le gouvernement canadien a envoyé des forces armées qui ont été là jusqu'en 2014 et ont beaucoup fait dans la région particulièrement de Kandahar. Nous avons décidé de nous concentrer sur d'autres mesures importantes à partir de ce point-là. Et nous continuons d'être impliqués. Comme vous le savez, le gouvernement du Canada a annoncé des dépenses de 270 millions de dollars sur 3 ans pour continuer de faire l'aide au développement, l'aide humanitaire, l'aide pour développer les institutions qui existent dans le pays afin d'aider ce pays. Et c'est le rôle qu'on joue aujourd'hui. Et on espère continuer de pouvoir le faire. On devra voir dans les mois à venir si cette possibilité existe toujours, mais c'est certainement notre intention de contribuer de cette façon-là, une façon importante à notre avis.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. On passera maintenant au téléphone pour notre prochaine question. We'll now go to the phone for our next question. Operatrice, operator.
Thank you. Merci. Our next question, Ashley Burke, CBC News. La ligne est ouverte. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm looking for some clarity around Afghan interpreters' families. Do they have to, based on what you said, do they have to have specifically contributed to the mission in order to qualify? Or what specifically are the qualifications for family members?
Well, that too is an important question, and as I have said now on a number of occasions, the approach that we have taken in the design of this special immigration program is to try to be inclusive of those Afghans who have contributed in a critical way to both the Canadian military mission as well as the ongoing diplomatic presence that we have in Afghanistan. We have applied that principle by extending a pathway to the family members of those Afghans. It is not a precondition that their family members played the same role that the Afghans have, in part because they too have been targeted very deliberately by the Taliban for intimidation, violence, and even death. And by taking this approach, which again we will be implementing in very close collaboration with our friends at the Department of National Defence, CAF, as well as Global Affairs Canada, we hoped and will do right by those Afghans who did right by Canada for so long.
Follow-up, Ashley?
And as well, how bureaucratic is this all going to be for those who are trying to be part of this program to prove that they qualify? This is a big question a lot of these individuals have right now.
Well, on the issue of the relationship between Afghans and the government, I will again defer to my colleagues, Ministers Sajjan and Garneau, because it is their departments and their officials who are best positioned to validate the relationship in the way that the program contemplates. But again, I'll emphasize that we have tried to take an approach here that is inclusive and in full recognition of the contributions of those Afghans who have helped Canada in that region for the better part of 20 years. And perhaps Minister Sajjan may wish to add something.
No, thank you very much for that question. The Canadian Armed Forces have been working very closely with Minister Mendicino's department to verify that list. Obviously, we have historical records of who worked with us in the past, but we're also contacting certain members who have may served with somebody. So if somebody provides a name, they'll know who they served with. Just like I remember many people that I served with, and they were able to verify, yes, this person worked with us. So there is a process in place, and as we verify the names, those names are immediately given to Minister Mendicino's department to add to that list. Thank you.
And I may just add one last word, because I know that the question has come up on several occasions around numbers, and again, I would reiterate that it is far too premature to say exactly how many will be eligible under the special immigration program. But I want to underscore that the work is underway, that the Department of National Defence and CAF and Global Affairs Canada are indeed reaching out to ensure that those Afghans, as well as their families who are eligible under this program, will be able to take full advantage of it. And without getting into precise numbers, we do anticipate that the numbers will be in the several thousands.
Thank you, Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. We will now go to the room for our final question. En passant maintenant à la Chambre pour notre question finale. Mon, go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning actually now still. Mr. Mendicino, in the news release the department sent, it says the eligible members, the eligible Afghans under this program will include interpreters at the CAF air base in Kandahar, and also cooks and cleaners and others who engaged in the embassy. So is it gonna, I need some clarity here, because it's like there are advocates who are saying cooks, cleaners, drivers and others who work at the Kandahar airfield also face the same threats like interpreters. So will these people be included under this program?
Well, as I have said on a number of occasions, we've identified a number of categories, not exhaustive, precisely because we want to give as much latitude as we can and deference as we can to Global Affairs as well as the Department of National Defence to come up with that list. What I will reiterate again is that in setting the parameters of this program, we are trying to be flexible and inclusive so that we can do right by the Afghans who have supported us both during the military mission as well as during our ongoing diplomatic presence in Afghanistan. And my expectation is that as I've said just recently, we will see several thousand who will be eligible under the program, and that work will be underway with both of my colleagues.
Mr. Sajjan, what would you say to other veterans and to yourself actually now, as you see, like there are a lot of sacrifices, a lot of work had been done in Afghanistan by the Canadian Armed Forces, by other allies, by other armies that under the NATO mission there. And now everyone, like veterans, are saying all this work could collapse, on the verge of collapsing. What do you tell yourself, and what do you say to other veterans?
Thanks for that question, and I think it's very important that we tell our veterans, and especially the family members who have lost loved ones, gave the ultimate sacrifice, that all of them can hold their head up high and be very proud of the work that they did. This was not about holding ground or land or regions. This was about supporting the Afghan people. There were generation of Afghans, young girls who have gone to school. The stadium in Kandahar that used to be used for execution of women, stoning of women and young girls, where we saw how kids played soccer. That generation has grown up and reaped the benefits of the work that all our Canadian Armed Forces members and many other people in their department, from international development, global affairs, and even Corrections Canada, the work that they did there. They touched the lives of a generation. Now, obviously, we can't, no nation can set the destiny for another country. They have to make their own decision. But the parameters that we set there for the people has had a significant impact. And more importantly, the entire world will be watching Afghanistan and the Taliban and hold them to account as well. And the efforts that were made there that touched those lives can never be erased by anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ministers. Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse. This concludes the press conference. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening today, and thank you for supporting us with our sponsors. Please go to depictions.media for more information and click on our contact link and let us know how we can help bring your story and help bring us to a better world. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.